Space, space, space.
The final frontier. And as you will come to learn, the theorized home of the exotic substance the Valorant protocol fights tirelessly over, Radianite. It's hard to imagine Valorant leaving behind the grounded locales its maps lie on, but as we look to venture onto Earth 2 in Episode 4, we must consider the possibility of going beyond this rock. These rocks we call home. Alright, lore friends. If you've been following me, you'll know my current predictions for future maps include Lisbon, Portugal, and Chichen Itza. Lisbon, with a healthy amount of evidence, thanks to this developer comment in the Fracture emails, is likely our next map. Chichen Itza is a bit more of a long shot, entirely derived from the Die For You music video. Check out this video afterwards if you want to learn more. That aside, I have found solid reason to suspect the Earth's moon as a potential future map, or at the very least, a future point of interest within Valorant's lore. However, we will first need to discuss the origins of the infamous space-bending resource, Radianite. Before we take that dive, consider subscribing to stay up to date on Valorant lore. Also, these more speculation-heavy videos typically don't hit YouTube search results, as I do my best to avoid intense clickbait. This is where you can come in. Like and share this video around with your friends. It's a tremendous help. Thank you. Alrighty, Radianite history lesson time. The theory I'm going to explain simply suggests that Radianite comes from space and came to Earth in asteroids. Now some of you might be confused, as many believe that Radianite came from an event known as First Light. This line of thought is a misconception, stemming from an early article regarding Valorant's narrative and world building. First Light is actually partly associated with a mysterious experiment on what would become known as Radianite, implying it existed beforehand. Quick aside, this information I'm about to share comes from a piece of writing given to me by creative director David Nottingham. We revealed it during a live interview via an ARG. The interview is still up on my channel, but you can find the full text pinned in the lore channel on the Discord. To be brief, First Light is an event that plunged the world into darkness, and was followed with the implementation of Radianite into human life, both in the form of technology and radiance. First Light occurred 10 years prior to the rise of Venice. We also speculate that First Light may have led to the arrival of rifts, which bridge Earth 1 and 2. These rifts that occur in the wild likely only remain open for a short duration of time. Another noteworthy mention. We also speculate that First Light may have had some kind of impact on Radianite, potentially bringing out new attributes. Also, recall that Yoru's ancestors had access to Radianite during the Edo period of Japan, which is further evidence against the First Light misconception. Meteor theory actually began prior to launch, with the Project Ares announcement trailer acting as a catalyst. This logo seen plastered on an earlier version of Haven reads Meteor in Russian, with a depiction of one above it. Unfortunately, being that the content of this trailer, much like any content dated prior to launch, is retconned, we can no longer include it as a piece of evidence. However, I felt it was still worthy of being mentioned, as it is still a part of the theory's history. More recently, we have two valid pieces of evidence for meteor theory. The first lies in Astra's backstory. Astra, the Astral Guardian, is speculated to have received her radiance from Lake Balsumtwi, in her home country of Ghana. The lake is featured in her contract player card and her promotional materials. What makes this lake so special? It is situated within an impact crater, formed long ago when a meteor struck the Earth. The rest of our current evidence is found on Breeze, which may actually have some ties to Astra. Disturbo, a good friend and fellow lore enthusiast, and I have attempted to piece together some of the story Breeze's murals tell. There are quite a few murals, but for the purpose of the theory, I'm going to focus on these three. The first one depicts a group of people dancing or celebrating in the presence of a star other than our own. The sun is lined up with them, sharing in the energy that is either being taken or granted. This second one depicts a chunk of Radianite falling. The visuals around the Radianite actually remind me of Bind somewhat, potentially pointing to the large piece of Radianite we see in the reactor above A. The third mural depicts a mermaid playing a guitar in a body of water. We've speculated that this may be a parallel with Astra's connection with Lake Balsumtwi. If you are curious about the other murals, I speak on the one of Wolf Mansion in my KO lore video. As for this larger one, stay tuned for an upcoming video where I seek to explain the message it carries. Lastly, we have an idea I presented when Breeze launched. Taking a look at this Radianite mine map, we can see the mine connects the areas around the chop shop to Wolf Mansion. Following this path from a bird's eye view, we can see the mine follows a curved line, with a large mass of Radianite found at the head. I put forward the idea that this represents the path of entry the meteor carrying the Radianite took. The notes on Breeze are not as solid as Lake Balsumtwi, but I have one more thing to share. This is a map that displays info from the Earth Impact database. The map legend below explains the various sizes and colors. Lining this up with in-game maps, we can see Bind and Fracture lie on or near impact craters. Recall the Radianite mining operations on Bind. Here, of course, is Lake Boswanpi, and Australia, which is absolutely full of impact craters, explaining Kingdom's presence there, as seen in Sky's reveal cinematic. Breeze doesn't appear here, but that makes sense canonically, as Breeze is an uncharted island, not existing in real life. Now, let me firmly state that these craters do not indicate future map locations. For instance, Haven and Split do not lie on impact craters, as they do not serve the purpose of mining Radianite. It's also important to note that it is unlikely that every meteorite that has struck the Earth carried Radianite. Despite that warning, I'm sure many of you will start running down the list of impact craters and begin speculating. Don't get your hopes up. I actually read a few academic journals on drilling projects done on Boswanpi and other impact craters to try and find similarities in core samples. A fruitless tangent, but honestly a fun one. At this point, you have probably realized why I would suspect the moon as a potential future map. The moon is also home to an abundance of impact craters. A common misconception is that the moon actually hosts more impacts than the Earth, when in fact, the Earth hosts more. This misconception stems from the fact that the moon does not have weather and subsequently erosion to hide or cover the craters. Now, what group do we know has the resources to exploit these proposed open pockets of Radianite littering the moon? Kingdom. Now we have to ask, is it Alpha Kingdom, Omega, or both? I'm willing to bet Alpha Kingdom has only tossed around the idea. Omega Kingdom, or Kingdom Industries, on the other hand, has one major advantage in a moon mining operation. They're teleporters. Omega teleporters are capable of travel between the two Earths, as well as long-distance travel. One of the largest costs in mining anything in space is the journey out of our atmosphere and back. This is often one of the reasons cited for not pursuing the mining of resource-rich asteroids, as it eliminates the margin for profit. With a long-range teleporter on the moon, Omega doesn't have that problem. Another reason I speculate they've already done so lies in this email from Aurora to Ruben, both of whom live on Earth too. Aurora mentions that the geodome she lives under can only be opened given the right tidal forecast. Ocean tides are affected by the gravitational attraction of the Sun and Moon on Earth's oceans. Despite the significant mass of the Sun, its distance from the Earth compared to the Moon makes its influence over tidal forces half that of the Moon. I speculate that Omega Kingdom's potential actions on the Moon may have resulted in an accident that drew the Moon's orbit closer to the Earth, resulting in tidal forces more significant than those on Earth 1. Honestly though, I'm no expert on this stuff, so take it all with a grain of salt. Regardless, the prospect of a map on the Moon is just too fun not to consider, and with the notes provided, it feels just a little more possible. The Moon aside, the proposed cosmic origins of Radianite brings about many more curiosities. Where are these massive chunks of Radianite coming from? 99.8% of meteorites come from the main asteroid belt that orbits the Sun just outside of Mars' orbit. The rest come from the Moon and Mars. Interstellar asteroids, or asteroids originating from beyond our solar system, are very unlikely to strike Earth. In fact, we just recently detected an interstellar asteroid for the first time in 2017. This means Radianite is likely to have originated from the early formation of our solar system. This of course assumes the history of Valorant's Earth holds close to our own. Fiction is free to reinvent the past, so Radianite could very well be extrasolar. The bottom line is, Valorant's narrative is tied to cosmic forces, and I'm willing to bet our next step in venturing beyond the two Earths will take us to the rocky body that dominates our night skies. The Moon is just the beginning too. Look forward to my follow-up to this speculation-heavy series, where I discuss the... If you made it this far, comment down below. As always, a massive thanks to my patrons for making this video possible, and to all of my lovely subscribers for your continued support. Follow me on Twitter to stay up to date on Valorant lore news as it happens, and join our Discord to get involved in the community. Until next time, take care, agents.